All right. Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of A Cup of Joe. My name is Joe Escobedo, and very excited because we have Portia Kuo on the show today. Thanks so much for being on the show, Portia.
Absolutely, Joe. Thank you.
So Portia is the employer branding lead at Red Hat APAC. So really want to get your thoughts on what's going on in terms of employer branding in APAC, talk about some of the things you can do to stand out in a very, very crowded space. We'll talk about some of the things on really telling people-centric, purpose-led stories. And finally, we'll talk about ways in which you can collaborate with other departments in order to strengthen your employer brand. Sound good?
Absolutely.
All right, let's
do it.
Sweet. So I think one of the biggest challenges that I always hear from people responsible for employer brand is a lot of the stuff looks very saturated. So you see the same things over and over. There's a lot of clutter in the market. So they're always asking, how do I stand out? How do I make sure that we're shining through all this clutter? So what is your approach to doing that in the employer branding space?
So I'm going to go through that step by step, right? The most fundamental part of it is create an employer value proposition. And this is the most important, time consuming. You're going to spend so much time on this because firstly, we have to identify internally what it means to your employees to work for your company. We may have like a focus group that we identify a few people and have them talk about what their experience in Red Hat is like. And at the same time, we also have like an annual associate survey where we, test the water. It's not specifically for employer branding purposes, but just to, improve our policy or just to understand what our employees are thinking about us as an overall. So once we get that kind of theme, like the top 3 things that the employees like about working for us, we kind of use a second data set from maybe third-party companies like LinkedIn or Universum, where they have like an external survey that they talk about, okay, what does it mean to you when you're looking for a new opportunity or a new organization that you want to work for? So we kind of marry it together and find the best, EVP that would work best for both of the people who is working internally and the people who are outside that we're trying to attract. And the most important thing is we have to be authentic in our approach, right? I've seen organizations where they're using buzzwords and trying to attract their candidates. And once the candidates come into their organization, they realize that, the words that they've been hearing outside doesn't really match to what it is inside. And eventually they will just, leave the organization and, tell their friends about it, which is definitely not what we want. So once we're able to identify, our employer value proposition or EVP, then the second part is you have to tell your story, right? So like you said, it's a big world out there, and there is possibility that your EVP may match with other organizations, right? Because there's like several hundreds of them. So everyone will have a different story because every company has their own culture, their own purposes, and all those kind of things. So you might be familiar with this, Joe, because we're using the grid, the content grid. So it's a mix of rational and emotional.
Yes.
And who is yes, that really has helped us like crafting the kind of content that is not too repetitive, and there's a good mix of rational, emotional, and things that are coming from the corporate and things that are coming from the associate stories themselves. And all these stories, we will see it, on our social media posts, on our career page. And another thing that we think that it's good is word of mouth, right? We really rely on our own employees to talk to the people in their network about what it's like to work for Red Hat. So we have a really rewarding referral program. So I've been with several companies in the IT space, but for Red Hat, this applies to every countries and every types of jobs opening. So we have an incentivized program where we encourage our associates to invite people they know in their network to join Red Hat, and that's a really good way of firstly finding candidates, but also spreading the Red Hat stories organically, right? So we do have a little fun program where we give badges to every associates every time they refer someone successfully. And it starts from a super ambassador where they have like a badge when they start getting people successfully come on board. And then we have like the ultimate ambassador who has successfully referred more than 5 people into the organization. And at that time, they will get a ultimate ambassador cape that they're very proud of, and they wear it around the office.
Nice. Very, very cool. Like I said, I think Red Hat definitely has a very unique culture to it. I think a lot of clients, a lot of organizations I speak with want to do something very similar. They want that ambassador program. The big challenge they have is just getting people started. I think it's always the biggest challenge. Once you have people started, then you can have them spread the word internally. But how did you even get those initial ambassadors on board with what you guys are doing?
Well, we do a weekly, bi-weekly newsletter where people will get like a list of recs that are open right now, requisitions that are open right now that they can refer candidates easily. So they don't have to go into our portal. It's just an email that everyone gets in the organization. They click and then they can refer their friends anytime they want. And once someone successfully refers someone and they get like that incentive, people will be like, hey, I want to do that too. And we're giving out, not just the capes and the goodies and everything, but we also give them monetary rewards, right? So that really means something to them. And it works very well in countries like Japan, where it's really hard for people to apply to jobs, right? You would know. And, getting Red Hatters to reach out to their friends, it's there's already that rapport that they have that connection already. It's just a little bit of a push. And this program works really well, and I encourage anyone to do it if that's something that they would want to look into.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very good idea in terms of leveraging a channel which everyone usually accesses, which is the newsletter. I guess a way to sustain it as well, because it's something that's on an ongoing basis. That's another big challenge that organizations have, is they build it and then it's good for a few months and then they have really difficult time sustaining it. I don't know if you've encountered anything like that before and how you've dealt with it.
So yeah, absolutely. So we have a program manager who is dedicated to the ambassador program. So day in, day out, but they of course do other things as well, but day in, day out, they are the go-to person for this entire program. And at the same time, we have TA resources throughout the entire globe that will also help us with that, because if there's more referrals, it also means that their job gets a little bit easier, right? And so that's how we get the buy-in from people who can assist us with this program in particular.
Makes perfect sense. I'm going to let Mia jump in, because Mia actually comes from an HR background. So Mia, I see you smiling. Any questions for Portia? You want to jump in?
Yes, I love this topic because, Portia, just to let you know, I do have a bit of a background in both marketing and HR. So employer branding is right up there in my level of interest. So I love all of the things you're saying of how involved you get all of your employees. It seems really interesting to me because I'm sure at Red Hat, most of your employees are probably in like IT across different functions, and you yourself, you work hand in hand with people in TA and HR. How do you, as like a marketing branding person, collaborate and tie in all the work with all of these different people from different functions?
That's a really good question. So, so this role that I'm in right now is actually a new role. It was created exactly a year ago when I joined. That APAC needs our own employer branding lead, because we can't just have everything in the US and everything will come out US centric, which is not who we are as a company, right? So it really is about building rapport and introducing yourself to the key stakeholders or the people that you can work with. So it is as easy as, once you're on board, you introduce yourself to the marketing team, to the communications team, to the HR team. Because to be very honest with you, such a new concept. And if you say that you're an employee branding lead, no one knows exactly what we do. So it really is, creating a report, and at the same time, share them what it is that is you're trying to drive. So what I usually like to say is, you guys are marketing people. Your end goal is to have people buy your products. for me at the same time, I want to sell Red Hat as a company that candidates wants to work for. So we might have different targets, but our goal is the same, is to, you know, put Red Hat out there and people attracted to us. So that's that conversation started. And once they buy into my purpose, then they know, okay, let's do this together.
I think it's a very good point. And this is something I've been working with both HR and marketing, because I think there's definitely some synergies there. And even if I look at the funnel, the approach, it's very much the same. So the marketing funnel we would take is almost identical to the talent acquisition funnel. So there's definitely some parallels.
Exactly.
And even like you said, there is some shared goals. So marketing, obviously, they want to get more customers, but they also want to build that brand awareness. And one of the most cost-effective ways to do that is to leverage employees. So definitely, there's an opportunity for employer branding and the marketing team to collaborate and achieve both their goals. So I think that's a good way to pitch it to them, is saying, look, we can help you. Obviously, you can help us. Let's figure something out together.
Absolutely. And it also helps that, well, I don't know, we might be going to a different question now, but it also helps that we have an internal, I would say, agency that helps us with our creatives and our communications. So, you know, copywriting, graphic design, all those kind of things. And that group, they are constantly talking to the brand team, so that the message that we use, the languages that we use are incoherent with, the corporate brand. Right. So I think that's a good approach, so that, not employer branding is one thing and then the corporate branding is another. We want to have like that same image, not to, it's about consistency and not to confuse our audiences at the same time.
Absolutely. So you have an internal agency that's developing all the content for marketing as well as employer branding? Or probably more employer branding.
So yeah, so the employer branding agency would belong to the HR team or the people's team. And then of course the marketing team will have a communications team that is more product based or company. So yeah, it is separate in terms of the support that we get, but they talk to each other on a constant basis. So we get that, alignment.
I think that's the most important thing, because I think that's the big issue I see. You touched on one of them earlier, which is alignment of internal and external perception. I did this exercise with one of our clients recently. I had them brainstorm all of the things that they liked about, or they thought employees liked about. And then I went to some of the external sources and I said, okay, here's what we talked about. Here's what people outside the organization are talking about, either past employees or partners and things like that. It's like, there's a big misalignment here. So I think that is key, not only internal and externally, but also internally, which you talked about. Another thing I see people struggle with is, and I see a lot of multinationals, it's siloed communications. So HR only takes it to HR, marketing only talks to marketing, sales is in a completely different side. And it's a big missed opportunity, because like you said, there are some synergies, there are some opportunities to support each other. And you're actually, it's 1 + 1 is 3 in this situation. You're actually leveraging each of your resources to achieve both your goals. So it sounds like Red Hat is in a much better position than I think most organizations are in that space. Yeah,
we are moving towards that. I mean, to begin with, there might be siloed, aspects of it, but we are trying to break that down. And Red Hat is a company where we are very open, and collaboration is what we really stand for. So it's lucky that we have that kind of company culture. So yeah, I think it has potential to be even better, but now we're working towards that.
Yeah. Mia, is there anything you want to add on to that? Yeah.
Sorry, I was just really intrigued by what you guys were saying. You were talking about alignment. And Portia, you mentioned that your role was brand new in the sense that you had to basically translate this US brand into the Asian context. I wonder what was your experience doing that? Especially, I guess, maybe localizing, because talking to people in Japan would be totally different from talking to people in India. So maybe if you could talk to us a bit about that.
So first of all, we have to educate our US counterparts of what Asia Pacific is like, right? For them, I think they see it us as a lump of APAC, and then that's it. Whereas in APAC itself, we have like 5 different sub-regions. So we have China, we have India, we have South Pacific, we have ASEAN, and then we have Japan. And each of these sub-regions have its own, weaknesses and strengths, right? So the fundamental part of it is to set these different sub-regions apart for our US counterpart to understand, and propose to them like, okay, this is what we have to work on in China. All of our efforts in social media, in Facebook, in Instagram, in Twitter, doesn't go through to any of our audiences in China at all. So that's one thing that they find they might overlook, because China is one country out of all the more than 40 countries that we are present in. And at the same time, in Japan, they have Twitter, they have LinkedIn, they have Instagram, all of those stuff, but they don't look at our contents because it's not in their language. So we have to explain to them what are the things that we're going through in this region, and start packaging it to them and see, okay, these are the suggestions that I would recommend you or recommend us to go forward with. And this is an exercise that I'm also doing right now with my global team, to really educate them about our region, right? So once that's done, then hopefully we'll be able to see more initiatives that is more APAC focused, or even more sub-region focused, that is more related to the audiences that we're trying to talk to.
Once again, very nice. I think it's definitely a best practice that I recommend as well, is educating internally, especially across different regions. I mean, I'm guilty. I'm originally from the US, and before I came to Asia, I had no idea what was going on. I think in most of our minds, it's like you said, one big clump. But I think since I've been here for 13 years, I have a very keen understanding in terms of each market. What are the discrepancies between each one? And yeah, it is one of those things. It does take a lot of education and ongoing education for them to understand, what are the cultural nuances, where are the growth happening, things like that. I think the more you can do that, the more indispensable you become as an internal advisor. And I think if someone's in a global role, they'll definitely look at you as kind of their Asia contact person and say, okay, what do we do here? So I think you have positioned yourself in a very good place to advise the global team.
Absolutely, thank you. I hope I'm doing a good job. So, a lot of the projects will come to this side of the world.
Absolutely. Like I said, I think in my mind, you're ticking a lot of those boxes, the best practices that we would generally do. So definitely on the right track. And another thing I want to get your thoughts on, we talked about storytelling and telling people-centric stories. And I know Red Hat, I've worked with in the past, does a very good job of this, but what is the process or approach behind that?
Right. So, this is going to be a long story that I'm going to tell you, right? So overall, we would say that our associates are the best contents, or best source of contents. So on our 25th company anniversary in 2018, we wanted to rediscover our why, or basically, our purpose of why we do what we do. So if you're familiar with Simon Sinek's work, you'll be familiar with The Power of Why, right? Because we grew from 500 people to now 16,000. We have to accept the fact that people who recently joined may not necessarily understand, the purpose of why we're here, and the foundation of the company like 25 years ago. So we rediscovered our purpose again with everyone in the organization's involvement, because that's the way Red Hat does things, right? Because we believe that it's not a top-down approach for anything we do. We believe that good ideas can come from anywhere. So that's meritocracy, and that word has been thrown around a lot, right? So this is a huge project where we collected feedback from our associates. It's a survey, and at the end of the survey, we will say, tell us about a time in your career that you feel you are connected to Red Hat. So we have 20% of our associates actually wrote us their stories, and which is really good, right? Because that's good content. But what mattered most was that we were able to analyze the common themes or the commonalities, which which we ended up having 7 themes altogether, and from this exercise. And that is how we work together, and the impact it has on the world. Mm-hmm. And we really had to select a few words that can stick to people's mind. And in the end, we voted with the final statement of open unlocks the world's potential. And that is what we call now the Red Hat Why. And there's a whole entire video of it on our YouTube page. So I encourage you to take a look at that. Mm-hmm. And how we use this statement is, we share it with our associates, in the new hire orientation, for example, for people who come in. And when everyone knows the purpose of Red Hat and know what we're supposed to do, and at the same time, we will also, attract people who will help us sustain and scale a culture that is centered around transparency and collaboration and everything about Red Hat. So yeah, and that's how we start to plant that statement into the minds of our people. And it's also a good way for us to, allow people externally to opt in or opt out of our purpose, because there might be people who may not necessarily share the same purpose with us. And we also don't want that kind of group in our organization as well, because we're trying to achieve something. So yeah, I would say that would be how we do it, with a lot of collaboration and getting feedback from our own associates, because that's the most important thing to us.
Yeah, no, I think it's a brilliant way. I don't have anything to add. I think it's a what I would recommend as well. Mia, do you want anything else to add on to that?
Sorry about that. I think it's really great how you guys are finding ways for these people to share their story and create content, essentially, without them having to feel like they're doing a marketing exercise, right? Like, you guys just ask them a question and you get all of these great stories. So how else do you think you can best equip your employees to come up with these stories about Red Hat and to share their experiences without them feeling like it's unnatural? Because I understand how for some people, maybe talking about where they work or posting on LinkedIn may not be the kind of thing they're used to doing, but how do you think people can start doing that in a way that seems more natural?
Well, to be very honest with you, I think naturally Red Hatters are very open to sharing things.
That's great.
It's crazy, because our culture is set up on the open source foundation. So open source software is basically a software where the source is open for anyone to modify or to make changes to that particular source. So for example, if you want to do something or to fix something on your software, and you either can do it on your own, or you can go to the open source community and ask for like recommendations or solutions that they can provide. So think of it as a Reddit or a Quora, right? So people are happy to help you as long as it brings you to the solution that you're looking for. So I would say that our culture is very fundamental on the open source community and all those kind of things. And like our open organization is so important to us that, first of all, Jim Whitehurst, who was our ex-CEO, has written a book about open source organization that is dedicated to how to manage people in open culture kind of way. And we have what we call a culture activator group internally that we meet like every once in a while throughout the year, which is a group that kind of like, how do we sustain and scale the open organization culture while we are growing massively around the world, so that everyone in the organization, no matter where they are, in Thailand, in Singapore, in the US, they're feeling the same kind of culture that everyone is feeling at this moment in time. So naturally, we are an open culture animal, right? We are not afraid of speaking our mind, because day in, day out, when we make decisions, it's really is about transparency and collaboration. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but I would encourage to maybe allow your working environment to be more open and to have more trust and more collaboration, listen more, speak less, all those kind of things. And I think it will come naturally once you have enabled your employees to be like that.
Yeah, that's a very good. Oh, sorry.
That was a brilliant answer, actually. No, sorry, Joe. I just love the term that they used, open source organization, where you basically turn this sort of technical term of open source software into something that is part of your culture, that your employees believe in. I think it's fantastic. Sorry, Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I wasn't expecting this, but we're just praising Portia. But I think you're doing an incredible job. Like I said, another thing that I think, because I know a couple of the senior Red Hat folks, is they're also very active on social media platforms as well. So that's one of those things that, if you see your leader who's active on it, obviously you want to be involved in it too. So I think getting different people involved in the organization, Red Hat has always done a very good job of, and I think it goes back to your culture. So like I said, some really, really brilliant tips in here. I don't have anything else. Mia, any other questions? Otherwise,
I'm all good. I'm all good, Joe. Portia, thank you so much.
Yeah, Portia, these are some really, really wonderful tips. Last question is, how can people get in touch with you?
So I am on LinkedIn, so you can look me up at Portia Kuo, Portia, and then last name Kuo. I usually connect with anyone who sends me an invite, so go ahead.
You might get flooded. Portia, thank you so much. Like I said, we both have learned a lot. I'm sure a lot of people who are watching this will learn a lot as well. So thank you so much for sharing your insights today.
Thank you so much, Joe and Mia. Have a great day ahead.
Absolutely. And if you're watching this and you enjoyed today's interview, please feel free to share it with anyone who might find it helpful. And until then, we'll see you next time. Take care, everyone. Bye.